Well, welcome everyone. I'm so excited. I was just could hardly wait for today to happen. We are here with our wonderful guest, Valanne Ridgeway, who is a certified astrologer. She teaches astrology, facilitates beautiful circles that I've been a part of with the Inner Wisdom Circle, a part of Tools for Transformation with her business partner, Sasha Corper. Valan is all things astrology. So if I think of astrology and someone very positive with astrology, Valan is our woman. So she's an energy practitioner. She does channeling work. Again, she's taken some of our classes. We're thrilled to hear from the Soul Collective that she channels. So if there's anything that you need to know about astrology, here she is. Um, a couple of years ago, I had to look back actually, Val, and it was only 2 years ago. We were celebrating grandmother, the spirit guide that
Yeah.
I channeled, celebrating her birthday because her birthday was way, way, way back in the late 1300s in the Wind River area of Wyoming when last she walked upon the earth. And I said to Valan, wouldn't it be interesting, since we know her birth date, to do a birth chart of myself and grandmother? And so she superimposed those or blended them or however you use the right
Mhm.
terms.
Yeah.
And that was fascinating to see not only what Valan's astute astrology eye saw in the charts, but also how we kind of paired to bring our shared mission together.
Yeah.
So
That was
everything's
absolutely fascinating. It was
yeah,
fascinating.
it was just definitely fascinating. I like to go back and listen to it again myself. So we're here with Alan to hear about the year 2025 astrologically and kind of superimpose that with grandmother's focus that she does every year. She'll look ahead for the year, like what do we need to focus on for the year? And she calls 2025 the year where the child within can grow. And really for the first time in evolution or, in any incarnation. So that really struck me as a social worker. It was like, wow, we're in for an interesting year. So I want to turn it over to you, Valan. Share anything you possibly can with our
Okay.
audience about what this year holds, and then we can kind of find out if how grandmother's hitting the mark with her focus as well.
Yeah. So the first time you said this a couple of weeks ago, the first time in history, I can't remember exactly what your words were. And it's like, that's what we're living. 2025 is astrologically a time where huge shifts are occurring that literally have never occurred before in history.
Mhm.
Certainly in recorded history. Astrologers have gone back 10,000 years. My software doesn't go back that far, but I've relied on other people's research. What is happening in 2025? It's almost like a pivot point. It is this point where, it's the time between the past and the future. We're shifting into something that we have never experienced. And it's it's interesting because this really started probably in the 60s, definitely 2020. I won't go back through all the different cycles. However, for us at this time, we can see the level of chaos and breakdown around us. That's part of, but when you understand, it's part of, well, we're moving into something that's new. We're moving into something that we've not experienced personally, collectively. And so there are people who are clinging to fear. But when you recognize that energetically, this is an opening, this is an opportunity, this is a new way to be ourselves. It's so powerful and potent. And so I'm doing a couple of workshops, one with Sasha on this Saturday, where we're looking at all the energies because this is a time to be really intentional, to really focus, to really use the energies that the astrology is providing so that we flow with it. We don't necessarily fight against it. Not that there's not going to be challenges, but the opportunities are so potent and the potential is incredible. So it's as soon as grandmother said, "Oh, we've never seen this before." It's like that is astrologically absolutely true. We have never seen the configuration that's going to happen.
Well,
So
and I'm just going to pause. I mean, I'm not going to pause the
yeah,
video. I just want to pause for 1 second to reach to my journals here
okay, yeah,
because, I mean, and we could not have planned this ourselves, you and I. I got two journals, one like, okay, guides, what's happening? The other one is if we're going to be talking to that child within, throughout the year.
Mhm.
And I want to just show you, and again, the-
Oh my God, that is
that's the
hilarious.
first page, and that was the first message I got when I opened my journal for
Okay,
the.
that gives me the shivers. Like, just give me that. I mean, I just love that when there's the synergy of energy. It just is. It just is. Yeah,
Mm.
and
So
it's
I
that
mean, that's
place.
go ahead. No, I
Sorry.
was just thinking that's what I love about you is that you're always looking at the opportunity through the
Yeah.
astrological lens, and this is such an opportunity for humanity
Oh,
and for
it,
people to just pivot and make it different. Like, come on.
it, exactly. And recognizing, working with you intuitively, or with grandmother, or with astrology, recognizing, like, that's the piece that's so empowering around
Mm,
having another way of looking at the world, that you can recognize, yeah, we are in a pivot point. So where do I want to pivot? What do I want to bring into my life? What do I want to change? It doesn't have to be big. It's just intentional. It's like, where do I want to go? What do I want to release, etc. So that just blows me away.
yeah,
Laura, you're gonna have to send me a picture of that time to pivot. Like, you're gonna
of
have
that
to.
pivot. Yeah.
I'm gonna put that somewhere on my desktop or something. Like, hilarious. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So maybe what I'll do is I'll talk just not astro. I'll give the planets, but I'll talk in broad strokes about the energies. And
Yes.
as I'm doing that, I'll as it comes in, I'm going to reference some of the stuff that, like, as I said to Lori before we started, I've got pages and pages of notes. As I listen to grandmother, oh well, that's that planet. Oh, that's that. So I'll bring it up as I'm talking, but I'll give everyone a sense of what we are living, and
Mm,
there's a piece about allowing ourselves to feel grounded in the change, and
mm,
that's because this is a huge pivot year. This is it, we're in it.
yes.
So that can be, at times unnerving, or I don't know what the future, and there's probably a lot of people listening right now. It's like, I can't even see with clarity where I'm going, what I want to do.
Yes.
Like, that's what we're in. We're in that now, and that's okay. It's the time to be dreaming things in, to be tapping into intuition, to be connecting to our inspiration, our humanity, our compassion. That's where it is, where we may not fully know what actions we're going to be taking till the spring. That's
Right.
the timing.
Well, that's a relief to hear because we just did about an hour ago the mid-month podcast
Mm.
for
Hmm.
those that sign up for the monthly focus. And grandmother was saying, like, basically you are in stun mode. Like you may be feeling stunned or not knowing what to do, but that's okay because your whole life so far, all of us, I'm talking about everybody we're privileged to know,
Hmm.
has been making a difference, stepping out of the box, holding a different intention so that the world could continue to exist. So
Hmm.
that's been no picnic for anybody. And now that it's changed, now the world's like set, we're going to continue to exist, and that's been going on for years. Now it's that pivot point, but it's like you may feel stunned because you've never, well, had a chance to play or choose different or be light,
Exactly.
and it's like, what?
Yeah,
What? What
exactly.
does this mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
And
thank you.
I'll add something to that. This goes into the timing of grandmother. January and February, replenish your adult self.
Mm,
So it's so interesting. I'm going to just start with the sort of a quick moving planet. Normally wouldn't talk about. Normally it takes 6 to 8 weeks to go through a sign. It's taking 8 months to kind of go through this process at this point, and we're in the middle of it.
okay.
It's Mars in Cancer, and it's turned retrograde, which means we turn in with that energy.
Mm,
And so for the next 2 months, our job, Cancer, is creating a safe space. It's turning inward to replenish, to connect to our intuition, to take care of ourselves, to nurture ourselves. Like, literally, the timing is exact with what Graham. So part of what we're doing right now is we're not necessarily taking action. We're actually meant to be replenishing ourselves, meant to be
right.
nurturing, because it's going to be fast and busy coming up starting in the spring, astrologically. And so this is such a beautiful time where it may be I can't move forward, or I'm not sure what step to take, or I know, my energy might be low. This is astrologically the energy we're working in. And so what that, in general, a retrograde turn, and most people know Mercury retrograde, but Mars turns retrograde. It's where are we putting that energy back into us? We turn inward. How can we nurture ourselves now? What does it mean to take care of ourselves? What boundaries do we need to create? Because there's stuff that we don't want, in our little container, in our basket, as grandma would say. There's things we don't want to carry forward. There's things that don't nurture us. That's what we're in that energy right now, as well as there's something called the nodes of the moon. They've just shifted into Pisces and Virgo for the next 18 months. So we're living in through this big change. Pisces is connection to source. It's our intuition. It's our creativity. It's our compassion, our self-compassion. And that's the place we're heading. Okay. Virgo is the embodiment of it. It can be where, Virgo on the south node is like, what do we want to let go of? Anxiety. We want to release the need to be perfect. But put these two together, it's like, how do we embody spirit? Like, how do we allow the flow to become part of our day-to-day life? Literally, what's our practice? What are we doing? So that also just happened a couple of days ago. So we're in that flow now. And to me, that's part of the self-nurturing, and it's part of the replenishment. Like, okay, trust your intuition. Trust when you need to be soft. Trust when you need to have self-compassion. Stay out of the need to be perfect or to, let that inner critic go to town. Like, this is the place to let go of that, step into that self-compassion. So just in terms of the timing and setting the year off, it's not as much an action time. Like, it really is
nurturing.
A nurturing time. So to recognize that we don't beat ourselves up when, I haven't started this project I meant to start. Well, maybe we're still dreaming it in. Maybe we're still in the flow of the creativity. Maybe there's pieces where, intuitively we're not quite ready. Everyone's going to be different. And it doesn't mean, with astrology, it doesn't mean life stops. We still do our day. We still get up in the morning. We do our jobs. We do whatever we're doing. We continue to do it. But if we can work with the flow and not push against it. So if it's, that point where, I should be doing that. And this is not a time to force the shoulds. This is more the time for self-compassion, creative.
Well, again, just today when we were doing the mid-month focus, grandmother says, if you feel like you have to push, don't, because you're just going to push and do more of the same, and you can't keep doing more of the same. So, she used the word stunned. Like, if you feel like deer in headlights or stunned, or almost everybody I'm talking to is like, oh my God, I'm so tired. All I want to do is sleep or make my nest, like you said. Like, I've just been reorganizing my living room, or I've been throwing things out. It's like, oh, good. I'm going to phone them back and say, Valanne said we're supposed to be doing that.
Exactly. It's all good. It's all good.
It's all good.
That is so funny. Yeah. Well, I mean, here's this. It's so fun. I love when I listen to grandmother and she's speaking of things that are astrologically, because it's all energy, right? We're all one. So we get her perspective from the other side, and then we get the astrological perspective, which is it's the same energy.
Yeah.
So it's not.
How many times over the years have you said, I think grandmother is a secret astrologer?
Exactly. She's tapping in.
Awesome.
So anyways, yeah, so it's super fun. So the next part, you've got March to June, which is listening to our inner child. Maybe this is a good way to go through it, because this is following what's happening in the astrology.
Okay, sure.
So come March to May, two big planets are coming together. And they actually, we've got the lovely flow this year where planets step in and we get to test the waters. Let's try something. And then at the end of the year, in the fall, we get to step back and go, oh, how did that go? Before we fully move in 2026. So it's a really lovely flow. And I feel like it's almost like the universe has gifted us this chance to, okay, let me try this out. And then I'll get a chance to think about it, reflect, reassess, redo, whatever our re is. So what's happening is, this is where the child piece comes in. Saturn and Neptune are going to Aries. Aries is the child in the zodiac. It's the first zodiac sign. So it's literally in any cycle, it's the beginning of the zodiac. So
Hmm.
it is childlike. There is a playfulness, there is a wanting to get moving, an impatience even, that kind of, like a childlike thing. I just want to get going. Like this
Yeah.
is
So I'll do
so
it.
exactly. So there's going to be a lot of energy coming in, and Neptune is about our dreams, our spirituality, our creativity. So it's, one of the sort of key phrases for Neptune in Aries. Aries is warrior kind of planet sign. Let's get going. Is a spiritual warrior
Hmm.
or
Okay.
creative warrior, or the energy of compassion. Like there's going to be all so Neptune stepping into into Aries for just a couple of degrees in at the very end of March, which is
Mhm.
exactly where we've got listen to our child's stories, which is in the timing.
Right.
And then Saturn, a couple of months later, steps in, and Saturn's about making things real. This is the basket. This
Hmm.
is like, okay, so what creatively, intuitively, compassionately, what are we starting? This is initiating. What are we
Okay.
starting? And then Saturn comes in and says, okay, well, how are we going to manifest that? Saturn wants to plan things out. It wants to take
Practical.
it
Yeah.
wants to be patient. Exactly. Let's take our time and do it right. But here's the incredible thing. Saturn and Neptune, now this is until next February, but that we're in it this year,
Hmm.
are joining together and literally stepping into Aries at 0 degrees Aries together. That hasn't ever happened before. So it happened in 500 and something BC, but not at 0 degrees. And it's 0 degrees of Aries is a really important part of astrology. It's called the Aries point. It's like the initiating of whole new cycles. So once again, grandmother is saying, like, we are stepping into something so new.
Hmm.
And I, there's a piece when I'm thinking about this, there's a piece about the excitement of that, and that's very Aries. Let's do it, this excitement. But also that point about you can't look back for guidance.
Yeah.
So we're the only place we can look to guidance is in. It's the only place. Once again, those nodes in Pisces, like we are already this year is already shaping up to say, pay attention to the intuition, practice that, because we're going to need it. Because if you look in the outer world, well, that's no place to get guidance
Yeah, don't
anymore.
look there.
Don't look there. Don't look there. Exactly. And
Well,
actually,
and this is so in keeping with everything that we've been teaching for decades, which is, there's lots out there and there's
yeah.
lots of sources of wisdom, lots of support. Use your intuition, but trust yourself first. Do it your way. I'm going to give you tools. We're going to teach you the ABCs, but you have to make it new. You have to make it your way. And when you were talking about the excitement of that child, in the Focus 2025 webinar, grandmother was, she was giving us new terms. I mean, I've been working as a social worker my whole career with the inner child and that wounded part. And so now she doesn't want us to call it the wounded child anymore. She wants us to call it the vigilant child. Okay, that's cool. But then when she talked about, at the very end of the webinar, she talked about we have to bring that original
I
child out.
loved that. Loved
And
it.
I was like, what? And she didn't even give me that term because of course I have to just channel, right? And not get Lori brain in the way. So she only gives me just the slides. Half the time I don't understand them until she explains what they're about, which is a bit of a fun thing that we've done over the years. But it wasn't until 20 minutes before we were doing the live webinar in December last year where she said, "Okay, now I'm going to give you the term the original child." And Stuart wasn't even here, and of course he's my husband and my tech guy. And it
Yeah.
was like, how do I change that on the slide? I don't.
Right.
But I got it on there, which was great. So now, Valanne, that you're talking about this sort of, this has never been, and this is this newness, this 0 point. It's like, okay, so now that original child that always wanted to be here, it's in us all. It's not like a new phenomena, but that original child that's at the core 0 point of who we all are, that's more that part that's going to be blooming this year. Have I got that correct?
It's exactly right. And Aries, there's often key phrases for signs. Aries is I am.
Hmm.
So literally, it's what grandmother
I
say.
am finally.
Exactly. Show up. It's not like we haven't lived our lives. We're all doing our thing. But this is so there's something so there's such a big potential for all of us to really connect and I'm going to say connect to the inner child. But I love that I circled that the original child
Yeah.
because we all have that inside. And that's the piece that's often been squashed or suppressed or not encouraged to grow, whatever, right? We've all had
Sure.
we've lived our lives, right?
Yeah. We
So
talk about that always as that part of you that kind of closed down and got in its little shell for safekeeping. Like that was brilliant. Like
yeah,
too much discrepancy. This isn't what I know to be so. So
exactly.
I'll just kind of hang out waiting for my adult self to come collect me. Like that's the word we use. So it's like, okay, that's great. But then even myself, for my whole career, it's like, let's go collect that wounded part of yourself and let them grow up. Well, yes, we can still use those terms, but we also have to reframe it, like always constantly new. It's like, let's go collect that vigilant child, that has said, this is not what the truth is, but I couldn't fix it. Like I was 2 or 12 or however old we were. But now that original child, that light really from the beginning of time of all of us that came to the planet, it's like that's that wise, soul inside of us. Now it's not real, it's childlike in the innocence and the playfulness and the creativity and the want to just get it done.
Yeah,
But it's not a baby. Like it's not
exactly.
like a defenseless child. It's just like, whoa, this is a very powerful child, this original child.
Exactly. And as you're speaking, I'm thinking of, can Aries words, passion, it's that spark, it's our essence. It's, that part is being invited to be more integrated into
Yeah.
our lives, which is such an incredible energy to work with. Now, as we were talking about this too, something happened at the end of November, which is a 20-year cycle.
Okay.
Pluto has moved into Aquarius. Pluto is about our personal power. And I'm going to simplify this really, really down to simple. How are we empowered? Aquarius is to be individual, to be our own authentic being. So it ties in again because we've already got this powerful planet that's saying, okay, you've got the next 20 years to live out authentically. And the piece about Aquarius is it's about being your unique self, your authentic self, but it's also about the collective. So
Hmm.
there's two things that sort of tie into what we're talking about. One is that as we show up as our own unique self in our own quirky way and whatever it is, right? Whatever our
Yeah.
own self is, it's like we raise up the collective. We allow everyone to be their own selves. So, as I look around the world, if everyone just showed up as themselves,
Yes.
literally, I'm okay to be me. I don't have to come out of the wounded, vigilant, child. I can show up and the whole collective is uplifted.
Yes. What gives people
And
permission to do it the same, right?
exactly,
You're doing it.
exactly.
I'm going to
And
do it too.
yeah, exactly. And here's the really important part that I think is who is empowering you to be yourself. It's like finding your tribe, so it's like your circle, my circle. It's who you have in your life, who literally says, be yourself. You're
Mm,
amazing. Be yourself. Like we all need, Aquarius can be one friend, it can be circles, it's community, it's whatever we can find in our life. And I think that's going to be so important for the next 2 years as we really settle into these new energies is to recognize what support do we need to step into this new way of being,
right.
who is going to be there to walk with us.
Yes.
And so another astrologer, Pam Gregory, calls it the family of frequency because we're now moving into a higher frequency energy.
Mm,
So we can choose our family of frequency.
sure.
And that to me is going to be so important. And you know, and now as I'm talking and thinking, and what more does the inner child need to feel safe than to have the community, the family, the tribe around them to allow, you know, that exploration of, yeah, this is who I am. Yes, I may have struggled in some way in my life before, but now if I'm supported, I can show up.
Right.
So there's something really lovely about the level of transformation that Pluto is about. Total transformation. Depending on where it falls in people's charts, it's like everything changes.
Yes. Well, thank goodness.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
I'm looking down
Exactly.
at the next part of grandmother said after we listen to our child self stories in July. I'm not sure how the timing works in
Oh,
astrologically.
it does.
True safety is established for the first time. So a big part of it is probably that's tribe, right? You talked about that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And on top of that, I mean, literally the timing cannot be better. Jupiter goes through a sign, takes a year. So towards the mid June, it goes into Cancer. Cancer is about family. It's our protective space. It's how we nurture ourselves. So it literally Cancer wants to create safe space for the next year. I mean, when I got to the, you know, that part of the webinar, I was just chuckling. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, and Jupiter uplifts us. It wants to support us. It's called the greater benefic. It wants to allow the flow. It's encouraging. So literally that's
Yes.
exactly right. That safety is part of the energetic flow that we're all going to be feeling. And this is where, you know, the intentional piece about using the energy of astrology intentionally
Hmm.
is to recognize, even right now with Mars in Cancer, what doesn't make me feel safe in this moment? Like what, and we
Yeah.
can start to do that way before June, July. We can start to think about, well, what does safety mean? And and certainly, you know, family of frequency for sure. Like who is in my protective bubble that makes,
Yes. Yes.
so it's a lovely, um, yeah, it's a really interesting time, and I do believe that Uranus, the planet of which I haven't talked about yet, is the other thing. It's other outer planets changing sign. Uranus moving into Gemini, so there's gonna be new ideas. It's gonna be fast. It's gonna be
Hmm.
higher frequency, insights, awakenings, and it is in a beautiful flow of energy to that Pluto that says, okay, show up as yourself. So starting in the summer, they're working together, and their
Nice.
whole thing is be who you are, show up,
Beautiful.
awaken to that. So it ties in nicely with that.
So
That's
I'll be on in some big field with a cauldron making soup for everybody because my sign is
yes,
Cancer.
yes, exactly. Yeah, you really know Cancer. You've got other planets in Cancer, like you know Cancer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Cancer.
totally, totally. It,
Have some soup. Be yourself.
I know exactly. Yeah, let me feed you. Oh. Um, the next, so yeah, so I'm just going to say, in terms of this year, the other outer planets, so there's all the outer planets are changing signs. That's the part that's really, really highly unusual. So Uranus is moving into Gemini. Uranus is about being our authentic self. It's about literally like flashes of genius, awakening, understanding. And Gemini is the mind, and it's higher frequency, and it's Uranus is the higher frequency. It's ideas, it's communication, so it's social. There's a lot coming at us that's going to be new. Uranus is the future.
Okay.
So
And this
we're
in the
being,
summertime, you said?
yeah, this happens at the very beginning of July.
Okay.
And then it comes into that exact aspect, that exact relationship with that Pluto. So there's a couple of things. It makes me think that these are air signs. It's of the mind. It's fast. Ideas are going to be flowing. And so what's going to be so important is for us to stay grounded,
Mm.
stay, you know, connected to. So all the stuff we're doing right now, replenishing ourselves, tapping into intuition, integrating that into our daily life. I mean, all of us who are, you know, in circles and stuff are trying to do that as best we can, find that as
Right.
a practice. But I feel like this year, that's going to be, you know, foundational to keep us
Hmm.
feeling safe, to keep us feeling, you know, feet on the ground instead of like flying off in all directions.
So you're talking about being really looking after ourselves, nurturing ourselves, making sure we're grounded and anchored in that which, that which is real to us and that's what thrives us. One thing I want to add in here, I'd be very curious about your thoughts too, is that a few years ago, maybe even as many as 5 years ago, grandmother said to me, like in our classes when we teach, rather than grounding, because of course that's what we all know as healers and energy workers and humans, like we want to ground and anchor to the earth, that's home.
Mm.
And we can still do that. That's she's not taking it away. But she says when you have experiences that are very expansive, like learning something new or really going with your intuition or meeting a new guide or, hearing the information you're sharing now, we don't want to float off there and be like all discombobulated. But she's always reminding us, like, as we're grounding and anchoring to home and to the earth, also to expand, like
Yeah.
to make part of our conscious grounding practice be expansion so that we're not trying to put ourselves back into like what was. We're saying this is who I am, this is the basics, and now I'm also expanded so that I continually expand, which is different than floating away and feeling spacey and not anchored. What are your thoughts on that, Balan?
Well, I'm totally with you on that. And I think that's really, really, really important for 2025 because we are moving into a new future and it is, it's higher frequency. It is expansive. It is a whole new way of being energetically in the world, but that's going to be how we act in the world, like on a day-to-day basis, right?
Yeah.
So it's holding space. So now I'm going to go back to March, March, April, May. Saturn is the grounding planet. Saturn creates the container. Saturn is the boundaries. And it's coming into Aries. And it's like, okay, I'm actively creating these boundaries. But that's exactly right. It's holding, in this case, it's with Neptune, it's holding the dreams. We need to create a container that can hold this
Okay. Yeah.
expansiveness. So the container, maybe 10 years ago, for whatever our experiences was smaller.
Yeah.
Now this is
That was
really
our routine then. Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So now as we're shifting into these bigger energies, and there's
Hmm.
going to be a real flow of bigger energies, we need to really decide, how we want to expand that container and what
Yes.
that holds. And that's really intentional. What do we want in there? And it's going to be new, and we need that space so that the new ideas can flow in and
Yeah.
allow that to be integrated into our reality now. This is the future reality.
Perfect.
So
Perfect.
it's exactly right. And once again, it's the pivot year.
Yeah.
So if you choose to, oh, I feel safe with my container as it is, that's okay. But the old container, what's happening in the world, and I sort of have these visions of how this is cracking open. The old is cracking open. And so if you want to stiffly hold tight to the old, it's going to be a shattering experience. But if you can allow yourself to feel this new potential coming in and
Yes.
to create the boundaries that are appropriate. And I think part of that, honestly, is your support system, your tribe, your family, like to allow that to expand and to grow and to encompass what is drawing you forward in your life, rather than the safety of the what was.
Hmm.
That's what's happening globally. So once again, there's going to be people who are holding a small container, and the world is going to be shattering for them. But
Yeah.
we don't have to make those choices. Like we literally can allow the flow of a bigger container. I,
Yeah.
I mean, when I got to the basket part with grandmother, it's like, well, yeah, that's the basket
Yeah.
we're creating for ourselves right now. And I totally agree. It is, you mean grounding is, I mean, even the word grounding means so much, so many different things to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
What that is, like, is it a breath? Is it a walk on the wood? Whatever it is, right? Whatever we do. But it's that integrating this new,
Hmm.
that's what's happening,
Yeah.
into every cell of our body. And part of that, I really believe, is the childlike piece. It's like that child, like who wants to play and wants to create. I think grandmother said, that it's the changing, creative excitement of allowing that child to play
Yeah.
is part of that expansiveness.
Well, and a big part of that in the Focus 2025 webinar that grandmother is saying is we need our adult selves to
Yeah.
be both of us are using, because we're familiar with the concept, this term of a basket. So when we talk about a basket in the boundary seminar, we're talking about like a container, like what is our boundary? What is our boundary? And if we are the boundary, then we're tending to, we're our responsibility is to keep them, whoever's in our basket, safe and allow them to grow. When we're in the basket, our job is to grow and thrive and maximize the tools for learning. So if we're playing soccer, the boundaries are the soccer field, and the job is to play and really master your skills. But we can't play soccer if there's no boundaries. So we either are the boundary, so that's our adult self that has to hold the child within to grow.
Exactly.
And but then we as adults, we need a basket. So that's that tribe or the common people or the universe or nature or your guides, like we have a basket too. And we have to make sure we're tended to, not
Yeah.
our child self, but just it's like, how does my adult self manage and grow?
Yeah.
And how do I feel safe, whether it's my home, whether it's nature, or my peeps, or
Exactly.
your guides, that something bigger than yourself has to hold you if you're doing all this big job of changing and pivoting and tending to your child within so they can grow and make everything new. And
Exactly.
hopefully it won't be shattering for too many people if we can use those simple tools.
Exactly. And actually, as you said that, I've been saying this for a while and I'm hearing it a lot, is that we've all chosen to be here at this moment.
Yeah.
So anyone who's listening to your, to grandmother and to you or coming to my circle, whatever, anyone
Yes.
who's in this world, then it's our responsibility to literally just show up as ourselves. We've chosen to be here, and I think grandmother somewhere used the word beacon. Just show up as who we are,
Yeah.
because that is a lot. It's almost like if we show up as a beacon in
Yes.
whatever chaos our own life is in, like we're all going through our own stuff, but
Sure, of
if we
course.
can keep our light and shine that beacon, then literally we're impacting those around who actually don't know the astrology of 2025 and don't, like, there's, I guess the majority of people probably aren't in know the energy but aren't in touch with the various ways of
The
tapping.
nuances, yeah. To say, oh, I'm not going insane, or I'm not stepping out of life. Oh, I'm supposed to be doing this. Yes.
Exactly.
Well, it's almost like you were chanting when you just said that last phrase again, because it's so fresh in my mind. I just did it less than 2 hours ago. The mid-month focus, and grandmother is saying is, you know, you're probably saying in your mind as an adult, like, wouldn't it be nice to be a child now coming into this world? But you said, remember, exactly your words, you chose to come and ensure the very survival of humanity and the earth. And you just have to do your part, is what, she's saying. Do your part, hold your piece, your unique piece of life's veil. We all have a part. And I can't do your part. You can't do my part. We all have our own part to hold up like this big blanket, covering the earth. It's like if we all hold our part, it's all good. But we have to do our part. And so
Yeah.
when you say just show up,
Yeah.
that's exactly the same concept of
Exactly.
just show up and do your part, be yourself. And that inspires everybody else to pick up their part too.
Exactly. And I'll add to the Saturn in Aries that we're experiencing for the first time in, 30 years, but now this Neptune piece, that the compassion and the spirit combined with it. It's about having the courage to show up in our adult self, in our maturity. And that too it does take courage. It does take a passion. It does take a drive to be able to show up and say, okay, yeah, I've worked really hard and here I am. I have some authority here. I feel, I can own, it's like I can own my maturity in a new
Right,
way.
right.
So that is a piece of what this is, and that Saturn piece is about the container, the boundary, the baskets, whatever it is, right? So there's that place about really owning who we are, and then we can be clear on, what we choose to put in the basket to move into the future.
Nice.
There's something lovely about that.
Love.
So looking at your timing, once again, this astrologically hilarious. August play begins. So what's happening come August is all of these shifts have occurred already. So literally from March until August, all this, the big energetic changes will all have had a taste of what these new energies look like. And I have absolutely no idea, like zero idea what that's going to feel like, what that's going to look like. But there's an easing off of all of the changes, and it starts with, in astrology, there's aspects. It's the relationship between planets can be challenging or can be easy, can flow. Easy is probably the wrong word, can flow. And starting in August, lots of flow,
Okay,
so,
good.
which is absolutely lovely. And that as soon as I saw, August begin, yeah, of course. So for the rest of the year, there's more of a flow.
Okay.
And, as I've been considering this, here's the thing that, once again, going back to being intentional, what do you want to flow? What do you want to flow in your life?
Mm.
To be really conscious that we're living in a time of this opportunity of flow and change and being in touch with, being guided through this incredibly pivotal year.
Yes.
And so there's a part, once again, I think starting now to start to really think intentionally about what do we really want to allow ease, grace, flow.
Yes.
Because we can either sit on the couch and not do anything, like that's a choice, and there's people that all works for them, that's fine.
Yeah.
But you don't want to let this slip by. This year in the beginning of 2026 is so incredibly important, setting up the future, the collective future, the future of our planet.
Yes.
That as things are flowing easily, you don't want to just sit back and think, I'm on a little holiday. Like it's, I don't know what this is all going to look like. But my thought is to really consider what pieces you want to grow, expand, allow to, be embodied into this new world that we're creating.
Beautiful.
So whatever that's going to look like.
And I just want to stress for people too, because a lot of times when we talk about, that responsibility or this opportunity or, you can do and be your best self, and it's like, oh, I want permission to do that, but then we can feel intimidated by the almost like an obligation, like it's too big. And I just want to remind everybody, and I'm sure you feel the same way, Valan, is when we're doing that flow, when we're doing our part just might be being more present to nature. Our part might be smiling at people walking on the street.
Yes.
Our part might be insisting on a little more time to yourself,
Yeah.
or enjoying your food more, or looking after your body. It doesn't have to be dun, 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 out saving the world,
No.
because you do that, there's one less person to have to look after because you're doing it yourself. But also it's also inspiring other people. Like if everybody could do those things, smiling at somebody on the street, or in the store, or looking after themselves in their own unique way, like we can inspire each other. It doesn't have to be huge.
Exactly.
It is a huge effect because we're
Exactly.
all doing our part, but it doesn't have to be overwhelming thinking, well, I'm just little old me. What could I possibly do in the flow of humanity? Like when you said, like, don't let this year slip by, all you have to do is your part.
Exactly. And it's that part of Lapudu Lacourt, showing up as who you are,
Mhm.
being your own unique self. And it's my I have an astrology mentor teacher, Rick Levine, and his tagline is always think cosmically, act locally. And that's exactly right. It's like, do you open the door for someone? Yeah. Do you smile? It's like that's all it is.
Yeah.
It's literally following what feels right for you, to honor your own part of what you're doing in the world,
Yeah.
and just do it to the best of your ability. That's literally all, that's what it is. That's all it takes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't mean grand schemes, because grand schemes would intimidate anybody. It's like, it's whatever feels right, and living authentically
Yes.
is the way, it's basically the way forward. It's the future. And that's how
Beautiful.
we tap into higher ways of being, or following our intuition, or whatever it is, right? Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's so important.
Yeah. And it's, when we look outside to the world and all the parts that aren't kind of flowing or in harmony more with the bigger picture, it can be disturbing to see all of the troubles that are there, and they're very genuine and they are very real. And we don't want to say, well, that's the only reality. We don't want to ignore them or say, well, I'm not even paying attention to that.
Yeah.
But then we feel helpless pretty quick, when we look at what's not working. But that's what grandmother says, be the microcosm, be the holograph, be the grain of sand. One grain of sand can make a difference, because if you don't have that grain and that grain and that grain, not going to have a beach, you're not going to have a field. Like, we need every single grain of sand showing up. And all it is just us. So I'm repeating myself, but I really do want everybody to be excited about this opportunity that
Mm.
you're sharing with us, and yet not be overwhelmed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's part of going back to just the very beginning. It's embodying spirit in some sort of daily thing
Mhm.
that we do, which once again can just be taking a breath, literally, and having that
One breath a
cancer,
day.
yeah, and having that cancer energy. How do I nurture myself? Very simple. Like, I feel like we're setting it up so that we can move through this time in the way that is right for us. And it's going to be
Hmm.
absolutely unique for everybody. And it impacts, everyone's got a different birth chart. It impacts everyone's part of life differently.
Yeah.
Um,
So
so I
what
wanted,
about the fall? Like, what?
what's that?
I said, what about the fall? What?
Okay, I know. So that's the next thing. So you got September, November, the original child and creativity. And once again, I just had to laugh. So part of the shift of what's happening that's unique and maybe never happened before is all the outer planets are shifting into air and fire signs, the elements of air and fire. And what's going to happen in the fall is we're getting a little tiny few months back in water and earth. And that's it's creative energy. It's
Okay.
being in the flow. We're getting a time to go back and reflect, oh, what did I initiate in the spring and early summer?
Hmm.
Does that feel right? Is that where I want to go? Do I want to make some adjustments there? Do I want to, so there's this beautiful flow of energy, but there's something about mm, to tap into the intuitive, the creative, the water signs,
Mm.
to reflect on what in 2026, how do we want to move into those new places? How do we want to, when we hit the Aries point, zero Aries, Neptune and Saturn, making our dreams real, how do we want to do that? We get this lovely couple of months where we can reflect back,
Okay.
make our adjustments. So there's a place. So for me, it feels, very much connected to the intuitive, to the creative intuition,
Hmm.
and allowing us to be back into the dream world and that flow, and make reassess where we want to be come 2026, when this is, finally in for the last time. I'm talking Saturn, Neptune at this point, but Uranus will be the same. Uranus, new ideas coming in. Uranus is going to go back to Taurus, which is an earth sign. So there's that place about, okay, how do I want to make this real? How tangible do I want this all to feel? Once again, using the grounding word, how am I going to ground this new insights,
Yeah.
awakening future that we're stepping into? We get to connect to that again for a couple of months. And
Okay.
so You know, that the original child and that creativity is, to me, is part of that time
Mm.
before 2026 when it's like, okay, we're on the new path.
Yeah, yeah. We
That's
have pivoted now. Now we get to walk there.
exactly, exactly. And as you say that, I mean, even me, I was like, I don't even know what that means for me. But that thought about taking each step, trusting each step, intuition, trusting that step,
Yeah,
even if you can't see the step after. Do you know what I mean? Like there's this place where over the course of this year to recognize that's okay,
yeah,
that we may not have a destination, a shining beacon in this, you know, in the future that's saying, come here. We may not have that. But if we can connect inward and actually trust that the next step we take, whatever it is, and once again,
yeah,
can be really tiny. You
yeah,
know, it can be getting rid of some stuff. It doesn't really matter what it is.
yeah.
Just trust, okay, this piece I can do. This piece feels right. This
This
piece,
be yeah, I was just gonna say if you can't see it, just feel into it. Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. And that's
feels right.
be our guidance. And I really, really sense that as we are in this pivotal year, that the more that we can practice trusting that, and I know that's what you teach, so you know this, that is going to be our only true guide forward.
Mm.
We're moving into a future that nobody has lived through astrologically on
Yeah,
this planet. And so, what does that mean? Well, who knows, right? Like
that we're
we're
inventing it.
exactly. We literally are. We want to invent it through an authentic place. Because if we're inventing it through some a mind, some idea of who we think we are, we're going to get off track really
Yeah,
quickly.
I think we've already done that.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
big time, big time. We're reaping the rewards of that right now.
yeah.
So, and I'm really conscious of time. I want to get to December because I thought this was so interesting. So I looked at deep truths being told, and in December there is Jupiter, which is uplifts, it's beliefs, it expands your life. It's this gift planet, right? It is connecting in a slightly challenging way to Chiron, who's called um, the wounded healer, teacher,
Yeah.
mentor. And when I look at a chart, I look at Chiron. This, as you would, this in this new terminology, would be Chiron shows why the child is vigilant in a chart.
Yes.
When you're young, what happened that made you vigilant? I'm using that instead of
Wounded, yes.
wounded.
We'll have to
I would,
rename Chiron the
yeah, yeah,
vigilant healer.
exactly, exactly. So what's happening is over the course of December, this is really tight. It's like we're getting uplifted and expanded through some form of challenge that allows us to see, allows us to understand, allows us to have a deeper relationship to our vigilant child. That's going on through all. It's retrograde, so there's an inner process,
Okay.
and it's exact. It's like 23, 24 degrees. They're exactly in this slightly challenging. So the beauty of anything that's challenging in our chart, in our astrology, is it pushes you forward. So this to me was like, okay, this also gives you insight and awareness, new you know new expanded understanding of how you how you can take care of that vigilant child
Yeah.
may come through some challenges. And that Jupiter is in Cancer, so it's self-nurturing. It's like, okay, how do we take care of myself? How do I create a safe space for myself so that I can have a deeper understanding of my vigilant child? And to me, that's the healing. That's the connection to the original child.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I just, and it's exact. This exact square in December.
That's beautiful. Well, and when I read that, of course, we don't know till we get there, right? So I always say to myself and to anybody else who follows like the grandmother, it's like make sure we go back and listen to that Focus 2025, like at least quarterly, or print out like that's why I do. It's like print out the
Exactly.
layout because we'll get busy in our lives. So when I see deep truths be told, it's like in humanity? Like, are things coming out? Or is this deep truth be told in relationships to people in our inner circle? But I never really thought about deep truths being told to ourselves as
Right.
well. So it's probably all of it, I'm sure.
Probably.
And we'll wait till December till we all get there.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's nice to remember to include ourselves in that mix too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I was taking it back to because Chiron is the inner, I always look at it in a chart as the wounded child, literally.
Yes.
That's how I look at it when I'm thinking astrologically. And I thought, oh, there's Jupiter. Jupiter expands and uplifts and brings new beliefs, and how beautiful that can literally reveal deep truths. The only other piece, and I'm really aware of time now, the only other piece that
We won't
there's
go off or anything if we go a few minutes over.
Oh, okay, okay. The piece that's really interesting is this flow that gets created. It starts in the summer, so easy aspects. This flow builds, and it actually is building for the next couple of years.
Mm,
So as we connect to the challenges of the new, I mean, there's no way around that there's not going to be challenges if we're stepping into something new. Great potential, but of course, we got to figure it out. Astrologically, we are being supported, and part of that support is Pluto. And I'm looking at, I've got the charts up right now. I don't know exactly where it is in December, but Pluto is about deep truths.
mm,
And literally, Pluto wants to dig deep, bring things up into the light, to be seen, to be healed, to be transformed. That's its job.
mm.
And so at this point, literally sort of from the summer, really until around 2028, but more impactful and more profound at certain times, but through the next couple of years, Pluto is allowing that flow to happen smoothly, like there'll
Mm.
be some grace around what are the deep truths you need to see. And just to say that, this all sounds like a lot, and it is a lot. Everyone's birth chart, these outer planets are going to impact different parts. There's going to be people who have planets that are going to be connected directly and they're going to feel it really strongly. There's going to be people that it's going to be going in an area of life and it's not actually as challenging. Like, this is such a unique place and we all get to live it out in our own way,
Yes.
So we all don't have our whole life turned upside down and into this new thing and we don't know what we're doing, but that's just not how it works.
No,
It's
we're all
such
unique.
a
Yeah.
journey. Exactly. It's profoundly unique. So anyways, I feel like that deep truth piece is part of Pluto's job, and but it is going to be a flow that's happening over the next, and a huge piece of that is the truth for ourselves, our inner,
Yes.
our, it'll be external. There'll be things that are going to be coming out externally. It's like, oh, okay, didn't know that was happening. I sensed it in the shadow. Didn't know the truth of it. That's going to be happening.
Yeah.
But for me, the more pertinent part is that place where we connect to our inner shadow or
Yeah.
our the truths that need to come out because it frees us to be who we are.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I think when you talk about the deep truths and Pluto, and again, I'm not an astrologer. Thank you for being the one, so I could just ask you, what does this mean? Um, it almost reminds me of that saying, like, out of the mouths of babes, there's always truth, right?
yes,
And so we're always trying to hush children, especially who are intuitive, and it's like they'll just blurt out the truth. So it feels almost like that part of those deep truths that we would have known as that original child that will keep growing to understand the meaning, I'm sure, more deeply over time, that there's some flow and freedom for those deep truths to come. And not even what I knew as a child. No, like the original seed child. It's like, I don't think their deep truths have ever had a chance to be told yet. So I'm so grateful that we're all kind of going through this together,
hmm
as a planet and as individuals, but as humanity too. So we don't have to be like one person just
yeah,
popping out the truth.
exactly. No, that would be fun. No,
That
just
wouldn't be fun. I think we've tried that.
yeah, exactly. And I love that idea about the innocent child speaking the truth. because they speak the truth.
They do.
So, and that just makes, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the chart. That just makes me think, and that just flows out of them.
Yeah.
There's no angst, so there's a piece of that. I think that's really a lovely way of sort of thinking that there's going to be literally a flow of things that come up
Hmm.
that do want to support us
Yeah.
in our own personal transformation.
Well, and
However,
maybe we've matured enough we can finally hear out of the mouths of babes.
oh my God, exactly.
There's a reason they don't talk for those first 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. They know too much still. Yeah. They
Yeah.
haven't forgotten it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, totally.
Beautiful. Oh, Valanne, I mean, I could talk to you forever, and I know all of our listeners would enjoy listening to you forever. So we'll have to have you back on again. If people want to get a hold of you, to have their own personal chart, done, obviously, I highly recommend you. And like, how would they get a hold of you? What's the best way for people to reach you?
Probably the best way is to go to my website, valannesastrology.com. I think you're going
Okay,
to,
perfect.
that's the best way because my contact information is there and people can sort of see what I offer. And
Yes,
so that's
so
probably
they could
simplest.
sign up for a class, or I do know that you have your astrology cards, which of course I got 4 packs of them, and everybody eagerly wanted them. I was going to keep one to myself, but no, everybody wanted them for Christmas, so those nicely went out the door. So there's a lot on your site, which is great, and then they can link to the inner wisdom circle work and all
Yeah,
the your beautiful communities that you are creating, to support people during this time as well. So I'll
yeah.
be sure to put your
Put that
contact
in.
information in the show notes so that people can look up your site and how beautiful it is too, because I didn't say that you're a graphic artist, graphic designer at the beginning. So everything that you do, including your designs of your cards, like I think that's what everybody was like, oh, these are great. Oh, and
Thank
thank
you.
you for having your knowledge, but also always putting it in that creative, positive, opportunity-based spin. Yeah.
And thank you, Lori, because it's just been such a gift for me to be able to, you know, to have these conversations with you, not just, but, whenever we've had this conversation, because we've got the same kind of attitude towards being in the flow of life. And
Yeah.
so thank you so much. And actually, I will just say we do a free circle. Sasha and I do free circles every Wednesday. So just if people, that's
Okay.
toolsfortransformation.ca.
Sorry. So free circle for what was you said it so quick I didn't even catch it.
Sorry, yeah,
Okay.
toolsfortransformation.ca. And
And
people
what
can sign
happens in the
up.
circle? Just
What we call it astro clearing. So I look at the astrology of the month, and then Sasha does her energy rebalancing for things that are coming up. It's always a lovely, casual, lovely community. So
that's wonderful.
anyone's
Yeah.
welcome.
So just
Yeah,
harmonizing yourself for them, what's going on.
exactly. I'm very much like your monthly focus. Just I use just
Beautiful. Beautiful.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for being with us today. We really appreciate your wisdom, your heart, and for keeping us on track with a different model that is so well woven into grandmother's spirit perspective that it just makes me smile.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Big hugs. You take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye.